Welcome to Following JC Ministries End Time Daily News for February 23rd, 2014. This is a wrap-up of this past week's news. Weekly news wrap-up: violent Ukraine protests, food inflation, another round of Iran nuke talks, and JP Morgan sued again? Violent protests continue in the Ukraine. At least 70 people have been killed and 500 injured. In a bizarre twist, 67 police officers were temporarily captured by the protesters. Now, the EU and Canada have put sanctions on Ukraine officials because of the severity of the crackdown. The sanctions target finance and trade. The European Union says the force is excessive and charges there are human rights violations. Also, the United States is warning the Ukraine not to go too far in the crackdown. Meanwhile, it has been reported that the U.S. has been funding the Ukraine protesters to the tune of $5 billion. It looks like there is no end in sight for the protests, but the two sides are talking. Yet another round of talks with Iran and several world powers have finished up in Vienna. The negotiations are to curtail Iran's nuclear program, but Iranian leaders have repeatedly said they overstated what Iran is willing to curtail. Now, the top leader in Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says the nuclear talk will now lead nowhere. Now, I don't understand the negotiation tactics of Iran, but maybe they are talking and trying to be tough to get the best deals possible. Or maybe we take them at their word and come to grips that they are not going to negotiate a curtailment of the Iranian nuclear program. At any rate, countries such as Israel and Saudi Arabia must be feeling nervous. You know, food inflation is bad when it starts to show up in places like CBS News and the mainstream media. Beef, pork, and chicken processed, and the prices of them which are between 16% and 23% since 2011. Meanwhile, wages are basically flat. This is putting the squeeze on the middle class and the poor. In another economic news, housing starts plunged, and unemployment did not even improve, not even a bit. And that you need to add to the recently poor retail sale numbers, and you cannot make a case for the so-called recovery, which we are told about month in, month out. What recovery do we have? What is it? It is floated by Fed money printing in the tune of $65 billion a month, or $780 billion a year. Finally, there is a new lawsuit against JP Morgan executives over the $65 billion Bernie Madoff fraud scandal. The lawsuit names CEO Jamie Dimon and 12 other executives and alleges they knew about the crimes Madoff was committing, and the lawsuit is being filed on the behalf of shareholders of JP Morgan and charges senior executives that they had direct knowledge of the Madoff Ponzi scheme. As the Greeks say, character is fate.
Radiation leak confirmed in New Mexico. Reports are circulating that there is a leak coming from the nuclear waste site in New Mexico. This information has been confirmed, however, it needs to be noted that the levels of detectable americium and plutonium were well below any dangerous exposure levels, which has been set by the U.S. EPA. This is the first ever leak detected from the nuclear waste facility called Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, which is built in an underground salt mine. The plant also suffered a truck fire a few weeks earlier in a different part of the plant, and there seems to be no connection to the two incidents. According to Wikipedia, as a highly radioactive element, americium and its compounds must be handled only in an appropriate laboratory under special agreements. Although most americium isotopes predominantly emit alpha particles which have been blocked by the layers of common materials, many of the daughter products emit gamma rays and neutrons which have been a long penetration depth. If consumed, americium is excreted within a few days, and only 0.05% is absorbed in the blood. From there, roughly 45% of it goes to the liver and 45% to the bones, and the remaining is secreted. The uptake to the liver depends on the individual and increase with age. In the bones, americium is first deposited over the cortical and the trabecular surfaces and slowly redistributes over the bone within time. The biological half of the 240 AM is 50 years in the bones and 20 years in the liver, whereas in the gonads, testicles, and ovaries, it remains permanently. In all these organs, americium promotes formation of cancer cells as a result of its radioactive source. Plutonium-239 emits alpha rays to become the fairly harmless uranium-235. As the alpha emitter, plutonium-239 is not particularly dangerous as an external radiation source, but if it is ingested or breathed in as a dust, it is very dangerous and carcinogenic. It has been estimated that a pound, 454 grams, of the plutonium held as plutonium oxide dust could give cancer to 2 million people. Therefore, as little as a milligram would be quite likely to cause cancer in a person. All this means is that yes, there is a leak and it has been detected. The radiation is no stronger than a radiation found in household smoke detectors. However, it is already in vapor form. Ingestion is very possible, and this could cause serious health problems. It is not expected to contaminate any popular areas. In order to bring you the most professional radio talk show about disaster preparedness and protecting your family during emergency, USA Emergency Broadcasting Network is open up a 24 internet radio station which can be accessed by the click the on air button on the www.usaebn.org website. Preparedness is as simple as ABC. A. Always be informed by listening to the USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. B. Build a kit. Visit USAEBN Marketplace. C. Create a plan. Visit USAEBN Virtual Academy. In order to save as many lives as we can, please pass this information around, link it to our site, whatever you need to do to share this information. USA Emergency Broadcasting Network's mission is to save lives, so teaming up together we can save lives. USA Emergency Broadcasting Network alerts are for informational use only. These alert purposes is to inform you of the news events in order for you to adjust your family preparedness programs. We believe that the knowledge is, and in order for you to make informed decisions, we try and bring you verified information not to increase fear but to inform you. We do not endorse any of the sources we link to any article. USA Emergency Broadcasting Network is an independent civilian disaster readiness program. Any use of this information does not constitute any type of endorsement. USAEBN operates solely on the private funds and commercial revenue. More information on commercial funded can be found at USAEBN Emergency Broadcasting Network.
Speaking about that, I got a question. Are you becoming an underground prepper? A lot of people out there right now are trying to get ready for these end times, as you should be. And let me go ahead and speak on that. Yesterday on Destiny Survival Radio, preppers were becoming more subdued and practicing greater discretion in light of what was happening in today's world. Does that describe you? Are you becoming an underground prepper? I know I sure am. Yesterday's guest was River Walker, one of the most popular guests I have ever seen on Destiny Survival Radio. If you are not familiar with him, let me go ahead and tell you. He blogs about stealth survival. He's a prepper from South Central Texas. And he doesn't just talk about preparedness, he lives it. And you'll hear that from the conversation. Now, River Walker retired last year after working many years in corrections with both juveniles and adults. As a result, he knows a thing or two about human nature. You see, how this colors his preparedness in his pictures as you hear our conversation. What's here up to these days? And let's see what he is going to be up to and has been up to in these days. The last time I spoke or heard from speaking about him, River Walker was on Destiny Survival Radio, and he was on it about, I want to say, a year and a half ago. Not many weeks after that, he had a severe heart surgery. Our hearts went out to him. And, well, thankfully, he's doing well today. And now he's retired. God bless, God bless. Jesus works wonders. And he's doing more with his family. He plans to provide backup support for his son's trek on the Appalachian Trail. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Heart surgery, now he's ready to go take a hike, take a big walk on the Appalachian Trail. And big blues. High winds and heavy rains damaged mobile homes on one of Riverwalk's bug-out properties. Now, for people who don't know what a bug-out is like a safety survival kit package. Something that you set up, you get ready for maybe the end times, maybe a big situation that's about to occur, a blackout, different things, a riot happening, and that's what he did. But now we see that high winds and heavy rains had damaged one of his mobile homes, which he was using as one of his bug-out properties. Smart man. And yes, he has more than one though. But and he planned, and as his plans were going on alternative routes to one spot in case the bridge on the way to it was out. Any preppers going underground? Smart people, that's the way I would go. Now check this out. Shows like Doomsday Preppers aren't doing preppers any favors with sensationalism. According to Riverwalker, more preppers are doing what they want and what they can to stay under the radar because they don't want to be considered extremists or domestic terrorists, as the government will put it. But obviously, prepping isn't necessary. Say what? It's not necessary? That's not right, because what? It is necessary. You got that? It is necessary. We should all be prepping for something right now. But obviously, prepping is necessary. So events like Hurricane Sandy prove that. And Sandy also gave proof that the government isn't going to be there to give us any aid right away, if any at all. Only one person to rely on for that. Boom, boom, boom. Now, prepare but not too much though. How much should you have on your hand and on hand? Let's see. Government agencies tell us to prepare because they know they're not going to be there when the chips are down. Yet they get nervous if you and I are too prepared. Why? Well, Riverwalker believes that it's about control. And other issues we discussed, and he discussed previously on his broadcast, was, I'm going to give you some details about the certain situations. First, even if you are prepared for disasters, should you get in line with everyone else when government trucks bring water and supplies? Also, is it possible or wise to drop out of the system? And what Riverwalker's financial strategy was for spending money on prepping supplies? What are some tips for staying inconspicuous? How important is it to maintain family bonds? Keep them tight. What's the optimal number of people to have in a group? Too many, too little, or just right? Will there be a new civil war in the U.S.? And there's more, including Riverwalk's thoughts about a unique business opportunity that was suggested, and which you may want to consider for yourself if you're well versed in local geography. You could hear the entire radio conversation with Riverwater by listening to Destiny Survival Radio for February 20th, 2014. And you can hear that at stealthsurvival.blogspot.com. Once again, that's stealthsurvival.blogspot.com. You can subscribe to his emails and keep up with what he has to pass along to you fellow preppers. Now, 1,100-year storms converging to threaten entire global financial system. Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. The wall of fiat money created over the last 5 years is staggering, offset only by the status that pervades its exchange. Money velocity is the key variable that will signal the character of confidence and the next wave of inflation. We've created 1,000-year storms that threaten the entire global economic system. The movement of money into the depressed conditions that unknowingly awaits its arrival will leave no one untouched. The time for lifeboats is now. While the storm can be contemplated, the energy observed and the acceleration is calm. The world will continue its printing experiment, and we may look like the cleanest shirt for a while. As long as confidence and brainwashing can hold, the storm has been created. The time needed for it to arrive is what we should be most concerned about. Acceleration will happen when it comes closer to the shore. Silver and gold, of course, will float along with the rising tide. Money mechanisms for money velocity. One common denominator for all documented hyperinflation, including those so-called reserve currencies, has been an increase in the velocity of money. Velocity of money is the speed with which money changes hands in the economy, or more specifically for modern times, the financial system. Government spending in the form of basic services will provide the fuel to bid prices. Economically speaking, organic growth is abysmal, especially when one considers the gross national product, or the production that occurs within geographic borders. The difference is magnified by great explosion of the fiat in the worldwide race to base currencies, where foreign exchange distorts the true productivity capacity of the underlying economy. Job growth, of course, remains abysmal. Wages are stagnant, and the labor participation rate continues on a multi-decade lows. The currency being created by the latest experimental bond buying program continues to pile up as excess reserves in the Fed's account. The banks are not lending money into the economy at nearly the same rate that is being created by the Feds.
Wow, talk about that. Now we're on to the Unrideable Storm. What is that? Well, to the extent possible, we've avoided dropping ocean analogies into these letters. However, the lessons learned from studying the ocean and directly experiencing its energy can be appropriate as on any occasion. Now, to train the ocean energy that every surfer dreams about is called a ground swell. Say that again, ground swell. A large storm formed thousands of miles away, with hundreds of miles of sustained high winds for days. It is the equivalent of dropping a large boulder into a calm and serene lake. As the energy radiates outwards, the waves organize into groups of traveling trains. The groups are often separated by long periods of lows that endorse a false sense of complacency. When the energy is expanded, where local conditions are calm, we experience an organized form of chaos, accessible for those who choose to take part in that energy. But when the local conditions are unstable, or if the swell comes in with a storm, the last place anyone should be is in the zone of exploding wave energies. This is because the local winds cause the organized train to accelerate geometrically. There are two lessons applicable to the current state of monetary dynamics. The first one, that the storms have formed all over the world. Staggering amounts of money have been dropped like 1,000 boulders into the ocean of existing liquidity. The second is that the storm energy, all of the formed and stormed energy, information like current position and size, and radiality available, and the unknown variable is the timing of its arrival and its velocity. Now, as money velocity accelerates, acceleration is added when the local conditions are stormy, creating the veritable victory at sea that threatens everyone in its vicinity. No one entity or body has the ability to understand a nonlinear system like the United States, our world economy. Some argue that it is able to go on every day like it has been. That is a sign of its robustness and sustainability. So we can sustain a lot of things, as you can see, and robust. But again, there is no way that the planners have a total grasp of what they are doing. Complex systems can be tweaked, but the effects are impossible to predict, except that they unravel in a geometric sense. There is no way to alter the weather, much less a storm of this magnitude.
The final countdown. We've created a 1,000-year storm that threatens the entire global economic system. The movement of this money into the depressed conditions that unknowingly awaits its arrival will leave no one untouched. The time for the lifeboat is now. While the storm can be contemplated, the energy observed, and the acceleration is calm. The world will continue its printing experiment, and we may look like the cleanest shirt for a while, as long as confidence and brainwashing can hold. The storm has been created. The time needed for it to arrive is what we should be most concerned about. Acceleration will happen when it comes closer to the shore. Silver and gold, of course, will float along with the rising tides.
Well, a huge meteor explodes over Santa Fe in Argentina. Yesterday, a fireball exploded over Santa Fe in Argentina and caused an earthquake. Scientists said that a meteor crashing to Earth could explain reports of a huge explosion 350 kilometers northwest of Buenos Aires. The loud boom was reported at 10 a.m. in Argentina's central eastern province of Santa Fe. A few days ago, NASA said that a huge asteroid, 2000 EM26, as wide as, 3 football fields, was going to pass Earth on the 17th. But whoa, don't worry. This asteroid is flying past our planet 2 million miles away, so we don't have to worry about it hitting us or getting any of the aftermath. Now, NASA was right. Asteroid 2000 EM26 did not pose any danger, but what they did not tell us, that every asteroid has a tail of dust and rocks, and the Santa Fe meteor was clearly a fragment or a product of the bigger asteroid. Now that's what we need to be worried about. We see it over again every time. If a big asteroid passes Earth, a meteor shower follows, or even a bigger space rock falls on Earth, like the meteor crash in Russia. It is just a matter of time before it really goes wrong.
Yep. Venezuela threatens to expel CNN over protest coverage. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro has threatened to expel the U.S. news network CNN from the country over its reporting of recent protests there. Mr. Maduro said he would take action if CNN did not rectify its coverage. Early, Mr. Maduro said he was sending troops to the western state of Táchira, where there has been continuing unrest. With tensions rising, the leader of the opposition, Henry Capriles, had called for the fresh, peaceful anti-government march on Saturday. There were reports of further clashes in the state of Táchira and in districts of the capital, Caracas. At a news conference, Mr. Capriles rejected violence and said he was ready for dialogue, but claimed the government was not willing to listen. If the turbulent hour, we call on the students and on those on the streets not to fall into the trap of violence, said, before showing several videos allegedly containing evidence of abuse by the security forces. War propaganda. On national television, President Maduro accused his opponents of promoting violence. He vowed to take the preparators of action against the Caracas Metro, where he allegedly also caught on video, to the court. Mr. Maduro also lashed out against the coverage of the protests by foreign news organizations. Enough war propaganda. I won't accept war propaganda against Venezuela if they don't rectify themselves. Out of Venezuela, CNN out, he said. A spokeswoman for the U.S. network, only available on cable in Venezuela, told the BBC it did not have any immediate comments about Mr. Maduro's comments. Last week, the government removed Colombian TV news channel NTN 24 from channels offered by Venezuelan cable operators. The government has been highly critical of international media coverage, while the protesters say they are concerned with a lack of media freedom, says the BBC correspondent in Caracas, Irene Casilli. Mr. Maduro also ordered the expulsion of 3 U.S. diplomats this week. The United States President Barack Obama said the Venezuelan government should address the legitimate grievances of the country instead of making up false accusations against U.S. officials. Supporters of Leopoldo López said outside the Palace of Justice to show their opposition to his detention. Earlier on Thursday, a Venezuelan court ordered that detained opposition politician Leopoldo López remain in custody pending further hearings. The government is charging him with intentional arson, instigating violence, damage of public property, and conspiracy. It is not clear yet when the next hearing will take place. President Maduro has called the opposition politician a murderer and alleged he is being paid the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency to topple his government. The authorities point to Mr. López participating in the street protest in 2002, which preceded a brief coup against the President Hugo Chavez, Mr. Maduro's predecessor in office and mentor, to back up their claims.
An incoming meteor destroys house in Regala in Sri Lanka. On 2014, an unknown stone fell on a house in Regala Estates in Walapane in Sri Lanka on February 18, 2014. The owner of the house on which the large stone fell described the particles of the stone that they had scattered within an area of 26 square feet. A group of scientists led by the head of the Geological Survey Unit of Peradeniya University, Dr. Jageth Gunasakera, visited the area and began inspecting the stone fragments. Now, according to his findings for the university research group, Professor Sarathanta confirmed that the stone was a meteor. Research scientist Dr. Suraj Gunasakera said that his institute is already to send the alien stone to India from further inspection and verification. It seems to me that also this space rock is a fragment of asteroid 2000 EM26, because the asteroid passed on the Earth on February 17, 2014. You can check that out on HeroNews.com. And on the same day, a huge meteorite exploded over Santa Fe in Argentina.
Crazy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Shocker. China dumps $50 billion in U.S. Treasury paper, leaving Europe to pick up the slack. Some are saying that this latest dump by Beijing is indicative of a larger trend of buyer's remorse as Asia moved to limit its exposure from a coming collapse of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. So, as China and Japan back off of the dollar, we see Belgium moving in to pick up the difference on the U.S. paper shortfall. Interesting. Maybe it's payback or Ponzi pay dirt. Europe, who were bailed out during the Wall Street TARP affair and mortgage-backed securities buyback scheme. With so much toxic and no-hope debt floating around Europe, maybe those stacks of thin U.S. treasuries look like the lesser of two evils. We'll see, but this is definite a shift in trends. China sold the second largest amount ever of U.S. treasuries in December, and guess who comes to the rescue? While we have more to say about the disastrous December TIC data shortly, which was released earlier on the 18th and which showed a dramatic plunge in purchases of U.S. securities in December. The month when the S&P soared to all-time highs and when everyone was panicking about the 3% barrier in the 10-year being breached and resulting in a sell-off in TSY paper. One thing stands out. The chart below, which we will put on our website, shows holdings of China's treasuries, pending revision of course, and the Treasury Department is quite fond of adjusting this data series with annual regularity. In a nutshell, Chinese treasury holdings plunged by the most in 2 years. After China offloaded some 48 billion in paper, bringing its total to only 12,689, down from 131.6 billion and back to the level last seen in March 2013. This is the second largest dump by China in history, with the sole exception of December 2011. This happens at a time when Chinese FX reserves soared to an all-time highs, and when China had gobs of spare cash lying around and not investing in U.S. paper. Should be quite troubling to anyone who follows the nuisance game theory between the U.S. and its largest external creditor, and the signals China sends to the world when it comes to its confidence in the U.S. Yet, what was truly surprising is that despite the plunge in Chinese holdings and Japanese holdings, which also dropped by 4 billion in December, is that the total foreign holdings of U.S. Treasury increased in December from 5,716.9 billion to 579.4 billion. Why? Because of this country. Guess which one it is without looking at legend. That's right, at a time when America's two largest foreign creditors, China and Japan, went on a buying strike, the entity that came to the U.S. rescue was Belgium, which as most known is simply another name for Europe. The continent that has just a modest amount of its own excess debt to worry about. One wonders what favors were and are being exchanged behind the scenes in order to preserve the semblance that is all well.
Thank you once again for joining us on us following JC Ministries.